Welcome, everyone. We're diving into a really fascinating moment in Christian history. It's called the Sunday of Orthodoxy. That's right. Celebrated on the first Sunday of Great Lent,
Hmm.
and it marks the restoration of icons after a period called the Iconoclastic controversy.
A really turbulent period, a pivotal moment. And we're diving deep into this topic with an article from the Orthodox Christian Tools blog.
Okay.
Really fascinating stuff.
And I bet a lot of people might be surprised to learn just how much controversy there was surrounding these religious images.
Oh, yeah, huge controversy back in the
Yeah,
day.
controversy. What was the issue?
Yeah.
It's just images, right?
Well, that's what's so interesting. This wasn't simply about, aesthetics or art appreciation.
Right.
This debate actually cut to the core of Christian belief,
Yeah.
especially back in the 8th century. Think about it, depicting Jesus in an image. Some people saw that as a huge no-no.
Like a violation of the commandment against graven images.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And that's where you have this group called the Iconoclasts. Iconoclasts.
Which literally means icon breakers. They believed that any depiction of Jesus in an image was just completely blasphemous.
Wow. So there were people who saw these icons as idols then.
Precisely. But the story doesn't end there, because on the other side you had a group called the iconophiles, the icon lovers, and they fiercely defended these images.
I can see how this would create some tension.
Oh, yeah.
But why were the iconophiles so adamant about keeping icons? What was the reasoning behind their position?
Well, it really gets to the heart of Orthodox theology. They saw these icons not as idols to be worshipped, but more like windows to the divine, meant to aid in contemplation and prayer.
Windows to the divine, huh? That's an interesting way to put it. It sounds like there's a lot more to these icons than just, meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
Much deeper meaning here. And it all ties into the Orthodox understanding of God's presence in the world and the role of the saints. So think about it this way. When you look at an icon, you're not just seeing a painted image. You're supposed to be connecting with the spiritual reality that it represents. So it's about more than just the physical image itself. They were more like tools for spiritual connection then.
You got it.
Okay.
Now remember, this whole debate raged on for over a century. It wasn't a small little disagreement.
100 years, wow.
It led to icons being literally removed from churches, and those who supported them faced actual persecution. It was a really tumultuous time in church history.
Wow, I had no idea it was that serious.
Oh, yeah.
So how did this controversy eventually get resolved?
Well, it took a pivotal gathering known as the Seventh Ecumenical Council in 787 AD. This was a huge deal. Leaders from across the Christian world came together to debate and finally try to settle this whole issue of icons.
There's a lot riding on this council. What was the outcome?
In the end, they decided that icons were not idols and were permitted in the church. They declared that the veneration of icons was acceptable and encouraged.
Okay.
They were seen as a powerful tool for spiritual connection. Remember these windows to the divine?
Right. So the council basically paved the way for the return of icons.
Yes, but it wasn't quite the end of the story. While the council did bring about kind of a temporary truce, the iconoclasts weren't ready to just give up.
Oh, no.
The debate would flare up again,
Really?
leading to another chapter in this whole saga of icons.
That's a great setup. It sounds like we've got a real comeback story in the making here. What happened next?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. We've got to fast forward to 843 AD and the reign of Empress Theodora, a very powerful figure who played a key role in what we now celebrate as the Sunday of Orthodoxy.
Okay, Empress Theodora.
Uh-huh.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more about her and how she figures into all of this. Was she an iconophile?
Empress Theodora was a huge supporter of icons. She saw their restoration as essential to the true faith. And she wasn't just going to sit back and let the iconoclasts win.
So she took action then. How did she go about restoring the place of icons in the church?
She convened a synod in Constantinople
Okay.
and officially declared that the veneration of icons was to be restored. This moment was huge. It marked a decisive victory for the iconophiles. And it's what we celebrate as the triumph of orthodoxy.
This triumph of orthodoxy. How was it received by the people back then? Was it met with, widespread celebration?
Oh, absolutely. Huge celebrations. Imagine joyous processions with people carrying icons back into the churches.
Wow.
The air was thick with incense and hymns filled the streets. It was a powerful moment that really solidified the role of icons in Orthodox Christianity.
That's quite a visual.
Yeah.
I can see why this event would be so significant. But beyond the celebration and the historical drama, I'm curious about the deeper meaning behind all of this. What can you tell us about that?
That's where we get to the theological heart of the matter. In Orthodoxy, icons aren't merely decorations.
Yeah.
They're seen as a direct consequence of the incarnation, the idea that God became human in Jesus.
So because Jesus had a physical form, it became okay to depict him in images. I'm guessing the iconoclasts would have disagreed with that.
Yeah, that was a key point of contention. The iconophiles argued that the incarnation made it possible to depict Christ in art, to kind of act as a bridge between the earthly and the divine.
That makes sense. They're meant to inspire contemplation and draw people closer to God, not to replace him. Is there anything in the Orthodox tradition that supports this idea?
Absolutely. St. Basil the Great, a prominent theologian, said, "The honor given to the icon passes over to its prototype."
Okay.
That quote perfectly captures how Orthodox Christians view icons.
So it's not about worshiping the image itself, but connecting with the deeper spiritual reality it represents. It sounds like there's a sense of reverence associated with these icons.
Yes. And that reverence is tied to the belief that icons are sacramental.
Sacramental. Can you explain what that means in this context?
Sure. In Orthodoxy, sacraments are physical things like water, bread, and wine that convey God's grace.
Okay.
But it can also be actions and objects that
Right.
convey God's grace. Icons are seen as a conduit for that grace.
So these icons aren't just pretty pictures. They're considered to have a spiritual power or significance.
Exactly. They act as a bridge between the earthly realm and the divine, conveying grace and allowing believers to connect with the holy figures depicted.
It sounds like there's a whole layer of meaning and symbolism associated with these icons. Is there a particular icon that's connected with the Sunday of Orthodoxy itself?
There is. It depicts the Virgin Mary as the Hodegetria, which means she who shows the way,
Well-
holding the Christ child. And she's surrounded by other key figures like Empress Theodora and patriarchs who fought for the restoration of icons.
So it's like a visual representation of the triumph of orthodoxy.
Yeah.
A celebration of those who fought to restore icons to their rightful place.
Exactly. It's a reminder that truth and beauty ultimately prevailed. And speaking of the celebration, what else can you tell us about how the Sunday of Orthodoxy is observed today?
I was just going to ask about that. What are some of the unique features of the services?
The Sunday of Orthodoxy services include special hymns and scripture readings that emphasize the victory of orthodoxy and the importance of icons. Right. And of course, there's that iconic procession.
Ah, the procession. That must be quite a sight to see. Tell me more about that.
Well, imagine a procession of clergy and faithful carrying icons throughout the church.
Yeah.
Symbolizing the restoration of icons and the unity of the church. It's a visual spectacle, but also a deeply spiritual experience.
It sounds incredibly moving. A real testament to the enduring legacy of icons in the Orthodox Church.
Mm-hmm.
But this deep dive has me thinking, how does this centuries-old event connect to us today? What can we learn from it?
That's a great question, and I think it's one we should spend some time reflecting on. You see, the Sunday of Orthodoxy isn't just about ancient history or theological debates.
Yeah.
It's about the power of images, the importance of standing up for your beliefs,
Right.
and the core of Christian belief itself.
Those are definitely themes that resonate today. We live in a world that's saturated with images, maybe even more so than in the 8th century.
That's an interesting parallel. We're constantly bombarded with images that vie for our attention and try to shape our perceptions. So the Sunday of Orthodoxy challenges us to consider, what are the icons we're venerating today?
Wow, that really makes you think, what images are we giving power and influence over our lives? What are we allowing to shape our values? It sounds like there's a real call to action here. It really does make you think about the power and the influence of images in our world today. It's almost like we're surrounded by icons, in a way, vying for our attention.
That's a great point. Think about the logos we see every day, the celebrities we follow online, the carefully crafted images in our news feeds. All of these had the potential to become like modern-day icons, shaping our desires, our beliefs, and even our understanding of the world.
And just like those early Christians who were wrestling with the whole concept of icons, we need to be more discerning about the icons we let into our lives. Are we giving them too much influence over us?
That's the question, isn't it? The Sunday of Orthodoxy, with its focus on images, gives us a really valuable way to think about the visual landscape we live in today.
It's not about rejecting all images, though, right? It's more about understanding what they're saying and being aware of how they affect us.
Exactly. And even more importantly, the Sunday of Orthodoxy challenges us to become icons of Christ ourselves.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. We're not talking about literally becoming religious images, are we?
Not literally, of course. But if we believe that humans are created in the image of God, then each of us can reflect that image in our own unique way.
So it's about living out our faith, making a positive difference in the world, becoming like living, breathing icons of love, compassion, and grace.
Precisely.
That's really powerful. It takes the idea of icons beyond just the visual and brings it into our everyday lives.
And that's the beauty of the Sunday of Orthodoxy. It's a celebration of faith, a reminder of the power of images, and a call to action to reflect the divine spark within us.
So as we wrap up our deep dives into the Sunday of Orthodoxy, it seems like the big takeaway is this. It's not just about ancient history or theological debates. It's a timeless message about the power of images standing up for what you believe in and the responsibility we all have to reflect that divine image in our lives.
Very well said. It's a message that's just as important now as it was centuries ago.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey through the iconoclastic controversy and the meaning of the Sunday of Orthodoxy. We hope this deep dive has given you some new insights and maybe even got you thinking about the icons in your own life. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.